going on, everybody? Welcome to another very special edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I'm Sean Woodland with Tommy Marquez and Lauren Khalil, who, I'm going to make it sound official, is on assignment over in France covering the French Throwdown. How is that assignment?
I feel like I'm working for the network news.
Yeah, right. I say on assignment makes it better than
Yeah.
you don't know what words to say to make things sound more important than they really are. But we appreciate your efforts. You've been putting some great content up on Instagram. If you guys want to get caught up with the athletes, had a great interview with Yona Koski, who was, we'll talk about it, but not where anybody thought he would be at this 5 minutes. We will go through the day of individual competition for the French Throwdown and the Far East Throwdown, because that was their second day of competition. And then the teams close things out in both semifinals as well. But before we do that, we want to thank our sponsor for our semifinal coverage, and that is Northern Spirit. You can shop the latest CrossFit apparel collection by going to northernspirit.sport.com, or you can scan the QR code on your screen. They have their latest line of apparel out. I was able to get one of their shirts, and they're super comfortable. Their stuff looks great. As you can tell, it's got the CrossFit logo on it, and they have really stepped up and done a fantastic job of supporting the semifinals, and we really appreciate their efforts. So if you guys have a chance, please check them out, northernspirit-sport.com, or scan the QR code on your screen right now. First thing we got to get into, and this isn't really necessarily, I guess it is kind of what happens on the floor, but late last night, in typical CrossFit last-minute fashion, there was an announcement made that the semifinals, the main coverage of the semifinals, North America East, North America West, and Europe, will be aired on ESPN+. Now, we are quick to criticize when things go wrong, and rightfully so. I think we're fair when we do it, but we also have to be quick to, give shout-outs when they are due, and I think this is a home run for them. Getting this stage of competition on that platform where someone might happen onto it and you get a new fan, people are watching. I love this. I just wish it didn't happen at the last minute. But kudos to CrossFit, because this is where the sport was when we were sort of on the upswing, when you would get the you'd get this sport on other things like CBS Sports Network and ESPN Plus back in the day. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is it's great that they're adding another layer of where people can find the sport and discover it. ESPN is obviously the kind of premier sports network, not just in the U.S., but there are global affiliates. So you have to consider all the different TV partners they have around the globe that filter into that ESPN app. Just kind of going from like a technical standpoint, like the ESPN app, I use it frequently. I'm a big sports fan. So the ESPN Plus is very easy to access from the app. It's one of the 5 major categories at the bottom of their app. The problem is, and I know we were talking, Sean, you had this too, you have to search for it a little bit.
Yeah.
So you have to go looking for it right now based on where it sits in the app. And that's because there is a ton of stuff going on right now in the sports world. PGA Championship is going on. ESPN has the broadcast rights for that. So their ESPN Plus coverage has featured groups, has the wraparound coverage for it. There's NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs that are pushing that down. So while this is great and that we should continue to do that, the timing is just unfortunate, right? Because that means they're going to be low on the priority list. And in their statement, they talked about being exposed to millions of new fans. I think that's a little bit overblown. Let's pump the brakes on that. But we can celebrate the win of getting back onto these streaming platforms. And it's not exclusive, right? You can still stream to YouTube. So that's a win-win, that being able to do both.
Yeah. Well, I think too, it's an acknowledgement from ESPN that, hey, yeah, this is actually good content and we want to put it on our platform, and it's not the championship. So that's a good thing. All right, let's get to action. Let's start in Europe. And what we will do first is we'll talk about the teams, because they are now done. They are sending 8 teams, is Europe, to the CrossFit Games. And Tommy, you talked a little bit about this yesterday, but my God, what is going on in Oslo? That is just a factory. They got 3 teams inside the top 8. They're sending 3 teams to the CrossFit Games.
And let's be honest, their fourth team was 16th in the hovering around that middle of the pack top heat.
Mhm.
So I mean, four teams out of 30, you're already more than what, like, was that 15% of the field, and three of them are going to the games. It's in this world where anyone can hop on a team,
Mhm.
and the barriers have been reduced to allow super teams and people to collectivize talent in very dense areas. Oslo's just done it a great way in building a massive affiliate, becoming an attractive place for people all over Europe to go train, and then doing so with developing some of their homegrown people. Like, and this not is you can't not at least in some way tie it to national funding that Norway gets.
Mhm.
You know, it is functional fitness is a recognized sport, so people can get paid for it. Um, you have the prevalence of IF3 and other pursuits that are CrossFit adjacent, that help develop talent. And Norway has been a monster in that area. And now we get to see it bear fruit with a team competition that, yeah, it isn't the main show, and maybe they're not just destroying the individual competition. But after putting multiple teams on the podium, they're starting to develop a bench of teams that I think really just makes them a premier affiliate globally.
Mhm. Well, here are the 8 teams that are going. CrossFit Prestanda Krieger, 448 points to win the whole thing. They never had to finish lower than 6th, and they won event 4. CrossFit Walleye Orca, another Swedish team with 400 points, finishes second. CrossFit Oslo Krieger PSL, CrossFit Oslo Krieger BLST. How about CrossFit Butchers Lab? They have been around forever. Like that's a gym that has been sending teams to the games, I think, since like 2011, 2012. And then you got CrossFit Oslo Krieger Riz in 6th, CrossFit or C23 CrossFit the program Motion out of Spain. CrossFit Holistic is the last team in 8th place, another Swedish team. So 3 Swedish teams and 3 Norwegian teams heading to the CrossFit Games. So congratulations to them, as they are now the first teams to punch their tickets to Fort Worth, Texas.
Yeah, and you mentioned Butcher's Lab too. Is there are a handful of these longtime affiliates that have been just powerhouses in their
Mhm.
respective countries. Butcher's Lab has been a staple of the affiliate community in Denmark for so long. Um, the Peterson brothers have that help coach and train and run the affiliate, and have been a part of that through and through. From down to sending teams to the games, developing individual athletes. Yeah, it is not too many years ago that you had athletes like Andre Houdet,
Mhm.
and Rebecca Vidison that were on that Butcher's Lab team, that have since been able to have success as individuals, and they do a great job. They run big events there too. So it's cool to see these long-standing affiliates that have been so crucial to the development of not just the sport but the methodology globally in Europe, be able to continually put teams out and stay up there with some of the best in what's a really deep Europe field.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
we'll move over to the individuals. And Lauren, what was the atmosphere like there today? Because
Oh,
last couple of years, I
oh,
feel like Europe has really led the way when it comes to the semifinal experience. Like their crowds have been, and I should be fair to Torian as well. Torian always has a great atmosphere. So those two have probably led the way when it comes to atmosphere on site.
the Americans have to step it up because that stadium was almost entirely packed, and I
Really?
went to both North America semifinals last year,
Mhm.
and they weren't even close to the turnout that people in Europe bring. And it's not just that the stadium is full, but it's also the energy. And I think we've talked about it before, but there's there's too many options in the US to
Mhm.
see high level CrossFitters compete where having a major event, a semifinal in Europe, everybody wants to go. And they had drums and they were representing their flags from their countries. And it's like so passionate. And that is truly like one of the biggest differences with the
Mhm.
atmosphere when you come to Europe.
Well, let's start on the women's side because this is getting exciting. We have a log jam on top of the overall leaderboard. 6 points separate first from fourth. Gabby McGowan is your overall leader. She has a first, a second, and a seventh, followed by Laura Horvath, who's only 3 points back of her. Amy Kringle, and Tommy, you said you would be watching her. She, I think, is the only woman inside a qualifying position right now who has everything inside the top 5. She's been lights out, 276 total points, tied with Horvath, but Horvath has the tiebreak because she has the win in event 2. You got Emma Tall up there in 4th, Karin Freyova, Jacqueline Dahlstrom, Emma McQuaid, Claudia Gluck, Jennifer Muir, and Linda Kiesman right now would be the last woman in. She's 3 points up on Elena Karatala-Sanahuya for that final qualifying spot. But more or less right now, this is going as expected on the women's side.
Yeah, I would say there hasn't been too much volatility, at least from some of like the big name athletes like we've seen, or some of the high ranked athletes that we saw on the men's side. Um, I think it's interesting some of the newer athletes that we've seen, whether that be Jennifer Muir and Kiesman, Claudia Gluck, who it really had a tremendous day too. Outside of maybe Laura, and I want to say Amy, she maybe had the third best day too, out of any woman. And that was coming off of like a damage control event in that first one at 23. We're still, it feels very weird that we're only halfway through the competition and it's Saturday, um, knowing that there's still 300 points out there, so the races are pretty good. I think for Amy this is big because she really needs that buffer potentially for that snatch event, depending on how it goes.
Yeah.
The lifting, especially the technical lifting, has not been her forte. So right now, even if you just say, all right, the goal for her is to qualify, she's got 276 and she's 84 points ahead of 10th. So that's a nice buffer, knowing that her general fitness should be fine for some of the other elements. Assuming she can handle the handstand walk, she's going to be great on the machine and the rower, and then she just has to bring it home in the sprint.
Well, and I think it's interesting. Before the competition, we spoke about, or one of the questions we had was, is it going to be Gabby and Laura all the way up at the top and then everybody else? But having Amy Kringle and Emma Tall in the mix makes it even more interesting. But again, speaking with some of the athletes, it does feel kind of weird that there's one day of competition
Yeah.
left and still half of the workouts left or events.
Yeah, and Emma Tall had a fantastic performance in event 3. I mean, it was her and everybody else. And then we had a great battle in event 2 between McGowan and Horvath. That really came down to that, I think, the final round where Horvath was finally able to take the lead from Gabby. So if you guys haven't seen the events and you just want some highlights, you can go to our Instagram page. We're putting up highlights of all the individual events from the semifinal, so you can get the Cliff's Notes version of what happened. So it's going to be excited on day number 3 for the women, because as we talked about coming in, there's so many races to watch here. The race for the top is, you got 4 women within 3 points of each other, but a ton of points out there. And then that 10th spot should probably fluctuate a little bit as well. But if you had to pick one thing that you guys are keeping your eye on tomorrow, what would it be? I know I'm putting people on the spot here.
That's tough because I feel like there are a couple landmines out there tomorrow. You know, I think that the technical lifting of the snatch event, for especially for some of these new up and comers who maybe have played with it a little bit in their gym. They've obviously hopefully done some testing of it here, but weren't around back in 2016 to see what it was like to do that under intensity.
Yeah.
And talking to athletes who've done it in the past and in competition, it's always a shock, especially with those threshold time caps for each barbell, how fast the rest of the field moves. And it can really pull athletes into some funky paces and some uncomfortable lifting scenarios where suddenly you're pulling like these last 2 bars in a really uncomfortable place, and you're just hoping that your technique stays together. And so you're coupling that with all the extra volume of doing 3 in a day. To me, this is like the veteran's sweet spot, right? You get the volume that you're used to, and with three events in a day, that you get at the games, you get a workout that if you've been around the sport for a while, you've definitely tested under the intensity, and then you get a classic CrossFit short sprint at the end that if you've been around, you've been to regionals, been to games, you've experienced, and you know what that's going to look like with your game spot on the line.
When they tested this at regionals, where was it placed in the weekend? Just thinking of the volume before it and even the handstand walks, how that would at least impact my shoulders than going
Hmm.
into a snatch ladder. I'm curious how it was
I think
placed
it
then
was
versus
early.
now.
I think it was early because
It was the first event.
yeah, because I have that memory of Josh Bridges coming out and like making that statement of getting through it,
Mm.
and that kind of set him up the rest of the way to have that redemption performance. But that's a really good point. I think that event is one that a lot of people are going to be keeping an eye on, because I think especially on the women's side in Europe, don't get married to that leaderboard right now. Again, 300 points, but that's one that could really shake things up.
Well, yeah, and you obviously the compounding shoulder fatigue from the handstand walks, and you have to do these big chunks, and some of it will come down to what the briefing looks like and what the rules are around some of the handstand walks. But um, like this feels like like some of the big names like Gabby and Laura are just going to cruise, and they're
Mhm.
going to continue to rack up, anywhere from first
Yeah.
to sixth. I'd be really interested to see Laura tackle Gloria and Gabby. I think both, and I think Jacqueline Dahlstrom is a sneaky pick for the snatch event if she's fully healthy, shoulders, lifting, everything is good, because she does really good with those like medium to 75, 80 percentile lifts for reps. If you remember
Mhm.
some of the virtual competition events from semifinals a few years ago, her and Gabby were doing them side by side, and at this heavy snatch event, they were, yeah, I mean, basically a dead heat.
Yeah.
And to see if anyone can break that the record set by Cara Saunders a few years ago.
Yeah.
A 5:29, I believe, is the record. So it's a good yeah, I know, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong, didn't like Mars and Heber and someone else try to beat that time working like doing it together?
We all did it in the gym
Like as a
downstairs. It was
team?
Yeah,
No, it was like Marston, Heber, and Ian Wittenberg, I think, all tried to
that's it.
do the women's weights and beat it, and they couldn't.
Couldn't do it.
But
Crazy.
Oh my God.
Well, all right. Well, let's go over to the men's side, because this is where we got a little bit of chaos going on. Jelle Hosta is your leader because of a tiebreak with Lazar Jukic. Heinrich Happelainen right now sits in third place with 249 points. Colin Boshard is in fourth. Harry Lightfoot sits in fifth. Uldis Upniks, who won the first two events and kind of took a nosedive in event three, finishing 25th, he sits in sixth. Annual Akai is seventh. Luka Vunyak, can he finish the story? So far, he is. He's in a qualifying spot, eighth place, with 201 points, 1 point up on Luka Jukic. And then Michael Smith out of Ireland, he's your last guy in with 185 points, but he is only 14 points up on the next four men behind him. So that's going to be a battle. But names that I did not mention, Jona Koski, and I'm going to scroll down here to show you where he is. Jona Koski is all the way down. Where is he? In 24th.
24th.
And then Victor Hoffer is not in much better position. He's in 18th with 142 points. Now, Koski's got to make up, I think, 75 points to get into just the top 10. And then Victor Hoffer is what? He's 43 points out. So not out of the question. And we'll get to we'll talk about the guys on top here, because there's a lot of good to be, celebrated with those athletes. But there is nobody who expected this at this point. I mean, I remember I saw the guys on the barbell spin saying, "Hey, you got Koski or do you got the field?" And it was like, "Oh, I got Koski." And now and I think we all felt that way. And now he's out of a qualifying spot, and so is Victor Hoffer. I mean, we talked about Victor Hoffer as maybe someone who could win the whole thing. Like, Lauren, what you got to talk to Jona, and you've had your, I think you've talked a little bit to people about what's going on with Victor. What's the story here?
Yeah, Yona, I mean, this morning when I talked to him, he was just like, yeah, wasn't feeling my best. And it's interesting because I feel like the things that at least I think the athletes are good at. So
Mhm.
not necessarily that Yona's great at running, but I look at a workout like yesterday, the first one with how long that event was and just the endurance and his aerobic capacity behind it. I'm like, hey, you should have done great in this. And he was like, well, no, I actually am not that great at running, but I've been working on it for the past 2 years. Um, And he was like, just got a lot of points to make up, and kind of similar with Victor. He just kind of put his head down in the legless rope climb workout. Felt really good in that one. The crowd was going insane. That was a moment where it was really cool to be in that stadium. The support that he has from the community here in France was
Oh yeah.
was incredible, and he's got friends here. His girlfriend is here, obviously, his whole his whole posse. But yeah, both of them have, you know, 3 events left to try to work up that leaderboard.
Yeah, and BKG's in the same boat. Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson right now in 13th. Now he's well within striking distance. But those are 3 names I did not expect to be outside of the top 10 at this point of the competition.
Sean, this was that overhaul that I was talking about in our preview show, right?
Mhm.
I was saying like is this the year we see this massive swing in the balance of power, not just at the top, but like, who's going to take the bulk of these spots from Europe this year? If you look at the top 10 and who's in a qualifying position, 70% of the men have either one or fewer CrossFit Games appearances. So they're
That's
either going
not
to be rookies or a sophomore. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, who's next on the bubble? All right, Fernando Yanesa Paradios, he'd be a rookie. Moritz Fiebig, a couple years under his belt. I would say still maybe in that uh, next rung down as far as like experience. Alex Catullus, 14th. These are guys around BKG. Alex Catullus doesn't have an appearance. Michael Wazlowski, 1 appearance. Enrico Zanoni, 1 appearance. Guillaume Briand, 1 appearance. Victor Hoffer, 1 appearance. Sven Greens, nope. Even
Wait, Victor Hoffer
if
he hasn't made the games yet,
I
right?
said he doesn't. Oh, yeah, he
Yeah,
doesn't have one.
my fault.
Apologies. Yeah. Um, so it's like behind him, there's a
Mhm.
lot of young talent, and you have to credit to the guys that are in the top 10 right now. The Bossards, Lightfoot, Annual Kai, like all of them have had consistently steady performance. Bossard everything in the top 10. Lightfoot with the 111th, but he bounces it out with a 4th, to close out the day. Annual both was also in 3rd, and I think it was really, if there's like a turning point, if you will, it was that 3rd event. You look at, like, it was Yella, Luca, Annual, Harry
Mhm.
Lightfoot at the top. It was like all these guys that are trying to beat the door down and be like, look, we're the next gen of Europe coming up, and we want to be the guy. We want to be the BKG and the Yona, the guys that are carrying this forward for the next 5 to 6 years. And I don't know, man. Like, we have the handstand walk event tomorrow with the rowing. Yona, Yona and BKG and Victor really have to make up some ground tomorrow, because outside of maybe BKG, I don't know if you could say any of the other 2 are necessarily home run hitters in that snatch event.
Yeah.
So if
Mhm.
you're not putting up top 3 to 4s consistently across the board, like, you might kiss it goodbye, and you have to pray for chaos at the top, and
Mhm.
that's not always the best thing unless you're Cole
Now,
Sager.
here's the question. Yeah, here's the question now with those. Let's take those 3: Bjorn Carl Gudmundsson, Jonakoski, Victor Hoffer. Who's in the biggest trouble?
Mm.
I just think based on points, it's Yona.
But yeah, I mean, obviously, if you're just going
Like,
based on points. But okay, so I guess maybe that's not the best
Like,
question to ask.
so
But
so so even so
do
he's
you think
what not.
do you think he's going to do better in the snatch event than Hoffer will?
Possibly. It just kind of depends.
Mhm.
The issue though is you just the real estate of the whole, like the real estate left versus the hole that you have in. You're looking at 70 plus points for Yona. That's your Yona. If you win all 3 events, you need the guys that you're chasing to
Yeah,
finish, ninth or 10th or lower every
mhm,
single event.
yeah,
That that's asking a lot.
mhm,
I also I feel like, and I think Yona can hit a home run on this next one too with the rowing and handstand walk. But is he going to beat Victor on his hands?
probably not.
Is he going to outlift BKG?
I guess the question is can Yona be closer to Victor in the handstand walk than Victor can be closer to Yona in the snatch?
Oof. I think it's going to be
that's a good
close.
question.
Yeah. I mean, I
I
expect Jordan Carl Gudmundsson to make a run. I think he will be there
yeah,
because I like the way that these 3 events set up for him at the end. But, obviously Jona's got the most points to make up. But yeah, I mean, there is no one out there who thought both these men, both Victor and Jona, would not make it. I
yeah.
didn't hear that from anybody. And possibly Bjorgren. I mean, hell, I said pen Jona in, pen him in. I just figured he
Mhm.
would play. So
Yeah.
the men's side has been crazy.
I
But
penned all 3 of them in with permanent marker, not even pen,
exactly,
like
just
the thick marker.
yeah, there's like 7 spots up for grabs because those 3 are automatically going to make it. But on top, Host has been fantastic. Lazar Jukic has been great. Uldis Upniks, he deserves credit. He swept the first 2 events and then 25th in the third one dropped him down
Yeah.
the overall standings. But yeah, like you said, Tommy, there's these guys that we've been seeing who start to make a statement over in Europe who are really starting to now really grab the reins and take over that continent. So day 3 is going to be a lot of fun to watch over there. Okay, let's quickly we'll move over to Asia because they are now they're done with teams as well, and it was the Kolesnikov team. They were nearly perfect. They win 4 of the 5 events and wind up with 496 points. CrossFit Marvel Black Mayhem, cut into that lead in event number 4. They actually got the win there. It's the only time they didn't finish second. So it was really those 2 teams and everybody else. So Kolesnikov team will be representing Asia over in the CrossFit Games in Fort Worth, Texas. So let's go to we'll go to the men now, where Ivan Kukrutsev is your overall leader with 279 points, every finish inside the top 6, and he won event 3. Ilyas Kuliev has looked good. He started with that event win in the opening event, dropped down to 12th, and then another top 2 finish in event number 3. He was a guy who last year was close, finished 4th in the Asia semifinal. So knocking on the door right now is that 2 men from Asia are going to the CrossFit Games, and Anton Yakovlev right now is tied with Arthur Semenov with 249 points. Although Yakovlev has the tiebreak because he has 2 second place finishes. And now on the women's side, there was a pretty cool moment in event number 2, where Sung Young Choi got the win, and then Duan Jung finished right behind her in second place. So the crowd was going nuts there for that. But the top 3 right now, Sung Young Choi, 291 points, but only 3 points up on Sarah Kaya, who over the last 2 years has yet to finish lower than got 2 wins already, event 1 and event 3. And Anastasia Dodonova sits in 3rd place. She would be the last woman in with 3 events remaining. She has 246 points, but she is only look at how many women are within striking distance behind her. She's only 12 points up on 8th place, Omer Reshev. So there are a lot of women who are knocking on the door for that 3rd and final spot. It'll be a fun day to watch over there in Asia. And again, I've got to give them a shout out. Their stream has looked really good. I've enjoyed watching it. I've actually been getting into it. I don't speak Korean, so can't understand the commentary. But like I said yesterday, the way that they're cutting that event, it makes they understand what's going on. They understand how to present the sport, and as a viewer, pretty easy to follow. So
Yeah.
great job to the Far East Throwdown.
Yeah, and it's interesting. One of the athletes that's right behind Dodonova in fourth, Evie Hollis. She's actually one of the few exemptions this year. So she's actually she lives in the UAE. She trains, coaches there, but is from the UK originally. Has competed in Europe the last few years, but she has been out in the UAE for a long time. So finally able to actually compete in the region with where she lives, and I mean, with 3 spots on the women's side, I think she could snag one this year, and we could see the distance and what it means to go from Europe to Asia in that regard.
Yeah, it's going to be a blast. Final day is all about the individuals. Again, you can watch on the CrossFit Games YouTube channel, and if you have ESPN Plus and you want to watch on your TV and not have to deal with that live chat, you can go over to ESPN Plus and watch it there. So that's always fun. Anyway, it's gonna be fun. Like I have really enjoyed. I really enjoyed watching so far. I've enjoyed checking out the Asia semifinals. Enjoyed the coverage that I saw today for Europe. Got to see a little bit last night before I went to bed, and a little bit more when I got up. And I've been shuffling through the events to put highlights together. If you guys want Cliff Notes versions of what is going on, you can go to our Instagram page. We've got highlights for all the individual events. And then Lauren's been doing great work over there, putting up some interviews. Who's been the most fun person to talk to so far for you, Lauren?
Ooh, oh man, that's tough. But honestly, I really like talking to Yellow Hosta. He's one of those guys that
Mhm.
is a little bit unassuming and might seem quiet, but once you talk to him and get him going, he has a really fun personality.
Mhm.
And his fiance is lovely. And just talking to him about, are you wedding planning? And he's like, no, like I'm
No.
crossfitting. The family is figuring it out, and it's gonna be fine.
Yeah. Yellow Hosta is what you get if you took Chad McKay and smashed him together with Brent Fikowski. I'm just
That's a
saying, I've
deep.
said this before. Both
That's
Fikowski and Chad
pretty.
McKay were both in Australia at the same time. Okay.
Some super soldier experiment.
That's
Just run with
yeah.
that, internet.
Some
All right.
Oh.
It'll be a fun final day, and hope everybody tunes in and supports. Check out the Far East Throwdown, man. It's been cool to watch.
Mhm.
Also, check out Northern Spirit, northernspirit-sport.com. They've really stepped up in a big way to support the semifinals. You can shop all their cool CrossFit apparel, and we want to thank them for helping us send Lauren over to Europe to give you guys some on-the-ground coverage from the French Throwdown. So,
Lauren,
any part?
a quick question regarding
Mhm.
that, because it's tough to see on the stream sometimes, but the athlete jerseys 50-50, or most people wearing just kind of what they normally wear,
I
like
think
keeping it
most
for a
people are
souvenir.
just
Yeah, I haven't seen a ton.
yeah, I've only seen a couple. I think most people, I mean, it's amazing what they did because I think that is super special, especially knowing how many people go to semifinals versus how many people will actually qualify for the games and have games jerseys. That it's more of a sentiment that a couple people have worn them, but I think people already have, their outfits planned or with their sponsors and things like that.
In Asia, I saw a ton of them.
Yeah,
On
they're
day
Oh,
one,
that's
a lot
awesome.
of them
yeah,
were
for
wearing
men
wearing the
especially.
uniforms,
That was helpful.
which is
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah. All right, Lauren, get some sleep. Great job over there. Looking forward to seeing what you come up with on on day number 3. Stay tuned to our Instagram channels, guys. We'll have highlights, interviews, all the good stuff, and then we'll be doing these recaps at the end of each day to get you set for the following day. But tomorrow we're just going to recap, and then we'll get you set for next week. So, all right. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for listening. For Lauren Khalil and Tommy Marquez, I'm Sean Woodman. Take care of each other. Be better. We will talk to you guys next time.